Hi guys, welcome to Basement Supercar Build, the channel where we see if an average guy like me can design and build his own mid-engine car. This video will be a highlights video of the work that was finished this week. If you want to see the actual work take place, watch the full-length video for this week. And with that out of the way, let's get started on this week's video.
Okay, here is the bent piece of PVC pipe. And what I did is I started with one of these straight pieces of pipe. I put some sand in a pan in the oven and heated the sand at 500 degrees for 45 minutes. Then I poured the tube full of sand, and you can't see it, it's pushed up in there. There's a wooden plug in each end of the tube, driven down until the sand is packed in there tight. The sand heats up the tube so it bends, it gets very flexible, and the sand also staying inside prevents the bends from collapsing. They push in just a tiny bit, but mostly the shape is correct. Then I rolled this around here and zip tied it in place, and we'll let this cool for 10 or 15 minutes. When the sand cools off, and then the tube itself will cool and it'll hold this shape. And then I will cut the ends to length here, even with the wood, and that will be the back part of the roll cage. And then we'll just have to make forms and do the same thing for the pieces that run up through here. This has a slight bend to it, which is easy to make. This will have a slight bend in it, which is easy to make. But there's also a transition here that I'm not quite sure what that degree is and angle, and how we're going to form all of that in one bending, because we need to do it all on one fixture at one time. But we'll work something out. And in the meantime, when this cools, everything is finished, I'll come back and show you what it looks like off of the form, and we'll take a close look at it. Well, I have a dust cloud down here from cutting and sanding all this wood, but maybe you can see what's going on. I wanted to show you a couple of things. Here's my PVC pipe for this rear main hoop of the roll cage, and it turned out pretty nice. And in case people were wondering how flexible this PVC got by putting the heated sand in it, everywhere I had a zip tie cinched down, no tighter than I pulled those zip ties. You can see that it put a compression in the tube. At least I hope you can see that. So it was pretty flexible. But when I cut the zip ties and sprung it loose off of the mold, it held its form. It didn't have any spring back. It looks really nice. It's accurate enough to do what I need to do here. And so I mounted that in the car, or just placed it in, holding it in place where it goes. And you get a visual up here. You can kind of see with the roof line, it lines up pretty nice. The back, it's actually shaped closer to the shape of the back glass, so that'll align and work nicely. But it's blends in with the front roof line of the windshield also. And then once I finished that, I started making patterns here. Made a pattern for the shape of the windshield, and I made a pattern for the shape of the roof line, at least what I think it needs to be, trying to offset this glass a certain dimension and kind of blend it in, coming straight back here to this other roll bar. I made a form out of wood. I know it's not perfect, but it's close. This center line comes up the windshield pretty close. It's not exactly perfect. You can see the line here and the line here. That line is inset here, maybe an eighth or so. So, I mean, that's close. It's not perfect, but for what I'm doing here, it'll be good. I've cut a former here at 9 degrees, which seems to be close to what that angle needs to be to run from a center line here and back to meet this here. It'll obviously weld in flush with that tube. Kind of hard to see here on the roof line. But that roll bar should set in from the actual outside of the car maybe 1/4 of an inch. I'm guessing that the The body panel itself, the carbon fiber panel, will be about 1/8 of an inch thick at most. And then there'll be a slight gap between it and the roll bar with some kind of mounting tabs welded to the roll bar to attach that carbon fiber piece to. But I think this form is close enough that I'm going to go ahead and try to bend a PVC pipe on this form and fit it in here and see how it fits and what it looks like and if I'm happy with it or not. And once we get this side to where we're happy with it, we'll make a form for the other side, which is identical except bent the other angle 9 degrees. Instead of flared to the right here, it'll be flared to the left for the other side, but just a mirrored tube. So those should be easy to duplicate, hopefully, when I get to the steel tubing. Never made a roll cage before or bent tubing like this, but hopefully we can pull that off. But just wanted to show you guys, this is new stuff to me and kind of fun and interesting so far. I'm sure it'll get frustrating in the future, but I'll take these little wins and gains as they come. Okay, here is the PVC tube roll bar assembly. And I want to show you this up close. I am pretty happy with it. There's a couple of areas that aren't perfect, and I'll try to get them a little closer when I bend the tubing. But for a first attempt, it is really not bad. This is the rear hoop, and I need to measure, but it's just eyeballed in the center. That's close. And it's vertical. The width and the height look to be very close, if not perfect. I have safety wire cinching up the joints here tight, just to get an idea where they go. I can slide them up and down easily and change the alignment. I have a fairly consistent gap here all the way down with the door glass, down to where this angle starts changing. The angle for the windshield, the arc is pretty close. I'm about 1/2 of a tube in here, 1/2 of a tube in here, and a little over half here. So this arc is bowing in slightly in the center of the windshield when it should have been more flat, but it's very close. And again, it's within probably 3/32 of an inch or so. I will need to maintain a gap between the windshield and the roll bar for the carbon fiber body post running up through there and the urethane adhesive that's between the windshield and the body, the carbon fiber body post. So that looks pretty close. I have this hoop across here on the front for the front support. It looks pretty close. The contour follows the shape of the windshield. Might need a little bit more arc here on the end to raise up in the center. It's almost out of your line of sight completely. Ultimate would be just so it's flush with the bottom of this black banding in the windshield, so I'm not blocking any of the clear area, and it is close to that. To get it a little bit higher, I can rotate that arc a little bit more and bring it up in the center, but I'll play with that a little bit more. And the other side looks exactly the same. It's kind of hard to see, but it's pulled in just a little bit here in the center. An even contour coming back from the glass. I laid a level across this bar, and that bar measured down to the body here on both sides and got it level by scooting this up and down. That keeps the gaps here about right. It looked like it did. So all in all, I would say we're very close. When this is finished, there'll be a plate welded on the bottom of this steel tube that bolts into the aluminum. There's a glass, a rear glass here, an oval in the back of this. It'll be in the bulkhead. This bulkhead will be some kind of a solid material, like a piece of lightweight wood or something with some kind of a laminate on both sides. It'll be carbon fiber on the inside. I'm not sure about the outside yet, possibly carbon fiber there, but need something inside for sound deadening, and I think wood might be a good thing to use. There'll also be some gussets welded here in all four corners to keep this from twisting and collapsing if it's ever on its roof. Probably some thin sheet metal instead of tubing up near the top, so the headliner can come up as high as possible on the inside, and it'll give the headliner some places to attach to those sheet metal pieces. But for a first try, I'm really happy with this. I think it's very close. I think we can measure off of these tubes and see what kind of slight adjustments need to be made and start bending on the steel tubing. Well, that's going to be about it for this week. I'll see you again next week where we'll start bending our steel tubing.